Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh.
Miền biển xa, người đi khắp phương trời. Ở nơi xa đó, người dân đói nghèo. Từ đau thương người đi khắp năm châu, lòng tin mặt trời chân lý sáng soi, dõi chiếu sáng dân mình.
Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh.
Vượt trùng sông, người đi khắp phương trời, luyện tôi ý chí, lòng núi căm hờn. Hồ Chí Minh, người đi khắp năm châu, lòng tin mặt trời chân lý sáng soi, dõi chiếu sáng dân mình.
Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh.
Miền biển xa, người đi khắp phương trời. Ở nơi xa đó, người dân đói nghèo. Từ đau thương người đi khắp năm châu, lòng tin mặt trời chân lý sáng soi, dõi chiếu sáng dân mình.
Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh.
Vượt trùng sông, người đi khắp phương trời, luyện tôi ý chí, lòng núi căm hờn. Hồ Chí Minh, người đi khắp năm châu, lòng tin mặt trời chân lý sáng soi, dõi chiếu sáng dân mình.
Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh.
Miền miền Đông, sao tắt nơi chân trời. Ở nơi xa đó, người dân đói nghèo. Từ đau thương người đi khắp năm châu, lòng tin mặt trời chân lý sáng soi, dõi chiếu sáng dân mình.
Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh, Hồ Chí Minh.
Far away across the ocean, far beyond the sea's eastern rim, lives a man who is father of the Indo-Chinese people, and his name it is Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh was a deep-sea sailor, served his time out on the 7 seas. Work and hardship were part of his daily education, exploitation, his ABCs. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh came home from sailing, and he looked down at his native land, saw the want and the hunger of the Indo-Chinese people, foreign soldiers on every hand. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh went to the mountains and he trained a determined band. Heroes all sworn to liberate the Indo-Chinese people, drive invaders from the land. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. 14 soon became 100,000, and Ho Chi Minh forged and tempered the army of the Indo-Chinese people, freedom's army of Viet Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Every soldier is a farmer. Comes the evening and he grabs his hoe. Comes the morning, she swings a rifle on her shoulder. That's the army of Uncle Ho. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. From the mountains and the jungles, from the marshlands to the plain of reeds, march the men and the women of the Indo-Chinese army, planting freedom with the victory seeds. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. From Viet Bac to the Saigon Delta, march the armies of Viet Minh, and the wind stirs the banners of the Indo-Chinese people, peace and freedom and Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho!
I was born on a Dublin street where the loyal drums did beat, and those loving English feet, they walked all over us. And every single night, when me dad would come home tight, he'd invite the neighbours out with this chorus. Come out, you black and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Show your wife how you won medals down in Flanders. Tell her how the IRA made you run like hell away from the green and lovely lanes of Killishandra. Come, let us hear you tell how you slandered great Parnell when you thought him well and truly persecuted. Where are the sneers and jeers that you loudly let us hear when our leaders of 16 were executed? Come out, you black and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Show your wife how you won medals down in Flanders. Tell her how the IRA made you run like hell away from the green and lovely lanes of Killishandra. Come tell us how you slew them old Arabs 2 by 2. Like the Zulus, they had spears and bow and arrows. How bravely you faced one with your 16-pounder gun, and you frightened them damn natives to the marrow. Come out, you black and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Show your wife how you won medals down in Flanders. Tell her how the IRA made you run like hell away from the green and lovely lanes of Killishandra. Now the time is coming fast, and I think them days are here when each English Johnny and he'll run before us. And if there'll be a need, then our kids will say Godspeed with the verse or two of singing this fine chorus. Come out, you black and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Show your wife how you won medals down in Flanders. Tell her how the IRA made you run like hell away from the green and lovely lanes of Killishandra.
Well, I am a modern hero, my name is Paddy Carney. Not long ago I landed from the bogs of sweet Killarney. I used to cry out so fat because that was my trade, sir, till I listed for a soldier boy with Corcoran's brigade, sir, for to fight for Uncle Sam. He'll lead us on to glory, ho, he'll lead us on to glory, ho, to save the stripes and stars. For once in our regimentals, me mind indeed bewilder. I bid goodbye to Biddy dear and all the darling childer. Oh, says I, the Irish volunteers, the devil I one afraid is, because we've got the soldier bold of McClellan for to lead us, for to fight for Uncle Sam. He'll lead us on to glory, ho, he'll lead us on to glory, ho, to save the stripes and stars. We soon got into battle, we made a charge of bayonets. The rebel blackguards soon gave way, they fell as thick as pay nuts. Och, on the slaughter that we made, with that it was delighting. For the Irish lads in action are the devil's boys for fighting. They'll fight for Uncle Sam. He'll lead us on to glory, ho, he'll lead us on to glory, ho, to save the stripes and stars. Some to glory, ho, to save the stripes and stars. Och, sure we never will give in any sort of manner, until the South comes back again beneath the starry banner. And if John Bull should interfere, he'd suffer for it truly, for soon the Irish volunteers would give him Mally Hooly. They'll fight for Uncle Sam. He'll lead us on to glory, ho, he'll lead us on to glory, ho, to save the stripes and stars. And now before I end my song, this free advice I'll tender: we soon will use the rebels up and make them all surrender. And once again the stars and stripes will to the breeze be swelling, if Uncle Abe will give us back our darling boy McClellan. We'll follow little Ma. He'll lead us on to glory, ho, he'll lead us on to glory, ho, to save the stripes and stars. He'll lead us on to glory, ho, he'll lead us on to glory, ho, to save the stripes and stars.
Alright everybody, you guys see that? That was sick as hell. Check out this new background that I made. Check out the new transitions that we got. I'm hoping that we can upgrade all of these. Most of it is just stuff that I threw together myself. But what's really cool about today's stream... I'm muted, aren't I? Dang it. I did the whole intro muted. Alright, to repeat everything that I just said, we are on a new streaming software today. Most of the background and the transitions and the stuff you see like that I threw together myself. So if you have ideas for how we can upgrade our overlays and our transitions, please shoot them to me on Discord, on the Midwestern Marks Discord. I'd be happy to hear your guys' input. But we are on Streamlabs now, so I have that all set up. We can easily replace this background if people don't like it, or replace the transitions if people don't like it. But there's a lot more that we can do with this app. StreamYard, that we've been using for years, is really for amateur streamers. And we'll probably continue to use it for interviews because it's good for things like that. But audio has some small reverb. The mic quality is nuts. Alright, one sec.
Okay, how about now? I think I had my my shitty webcam mic on instead of my main mic. How's it? Let me know how it is now. I'll double check here. It should be right now. Let me know in the chat how it sounds. If it sounds any different. There's still resonance, or it sounds better. One's in the chat if it sounds better. Much better, okay. A little quiet. Okay, I can move it closer too. And I can turn my gain up. Alright, any better? That should be good. You're good? Alright, sweet. Yeah, fixed audio sounds good. Alright, perfect. Excellent. Lennon Dubois says, honor to work with you this week, comrade. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Oh, look at all those ones in the chat. Thank you all. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, it was cool. We did an interview with a guy named Billy Bob who just joined the American Communist Party recently, within the last couple days. So that was a lot of fun. Billy Bob's a cool guy. I'm glad we could help him grow his channel. Recommend people check it out if they haven't yet. It's up on my X. There's something wrong with my light. My light keeps changing colors on its own. Whatever, it looks fine. But yeah, like I was saying before, let me know what you think about the transitions and the backgrounds. And if you want to help us get our Streamlabs setup optimized, hit me up on Discord. I'm always looking for ways to improve. But yeah, a lot of different things that we can do with this. So I'm excited about upgrading. Like, the mic wasn't working at the beginning, right? At first, the video wasn't working. The starting soon video wasn't working. I had to compress it on the side and put it in there in a compressed form. So there will be a few glitches like that as we get started here with Streamlabs, but we should get over them pretty quick. And I can now see the chat. Not there, right here. The camera's inverted. I can see it right here next to me, so that's cool. I no longer have to pull up your guys' messages. We can all just see them. And thank you to Sebastian for the $2 super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Getting the stream started off right. I love it. Thank you. I should set it up so it gives us like some kind of alert every time somebody gives a super chat. But anyways, time for our second test. Now this works, right? Everybody can hear me. Everybody can see me. Everyone can see the background. But for our second test, we have to try a reaction video. So I have one pulled up right here. My light just changed colors again. So I have a reaction video right here, and I need to turn on desktop audio, I believe. That should work. Okay. And this is our friend Nick Cruz from the Revolutionary Blackout Network, friend of the show and of the American Communist Party, basically giving a supercut of all the PMC leftists, all the fake leftists, pseudo-radicals, supporting what amounts to a Mossad color revolution regime change effort in Iran. So, pretty disgusting. Cornel West is the worst of them. Clean transition. Thank you. I'm glad you like the transition. That took me a long time to find a transition that I was cool with, so I'm glad you liked that one. But yeah, Cornel West has been like really, really off the wagon. Like, he's tweeted some wild stuff in the past, but his stuff about Iran has been like next level stupid. And what Max Blumenthal pointed out is that his wife is actually a liberal Iranian woman, a woman from the Iranian diaspora. His most recent wife, I think he's had like multiple, and that was used against him during his presidential run, his child support payments, which is, you know, that's a stupid smear. Like, whatever, people's personal lives is what it is. But now his newest lady is this Iranian liberal woman, so he's calling for Israeli-backed regime change in Iran on her behalf now, I guess. So, yeah, I'll just go ahead and say it. Remember when some of you probably remember when Midwestern Marx endorsed Cornel West's campaign? That was probably the biggest mistake in Midwestern Marx history. And it's not a big mistake, because like it didn't mean anything. His campaign didn't go anywhere anyways. We just gave people false hope for about 5 minutes. And even our own audience is so smart. You guys were like, yeah, I don't know if we're really on board with this one. But I was blinded because Cornell was pretty based in the 2020 Bernie campaign. He was telling Bernie after the primary elections were rigged to run as an independent and to try to split the Democrats and the Republicans. So that was pretty based, an anti-democratic party, which I like, but, you know, I had not looked closely enough at Cornel West's actual policy platform and his history, I guess. But yeah, someone says, I love this video from Nick. This video from Nick is also Diddy Shaw. Yeah, that one was not me. There were a couple members of Midwestern Marks who wanted to kick Diddy Shaw out from the beginning. I'll just say that. And others who were way too nice, who were thinking with their hearts instead of their brains. But anyways, here's, someone said they loved this video from Nick. Yes, this is a great, great video here. Basically doing a supercut. This video should go viral. It's not on the RBN account that has like 50K subscribers. It's on Nick's second account. But this should go viral because it's really quite amazing listening to these people who call themselves leftists. Midwestern Mark shows they are human. Yes, yeah, everybody has to get one wrong every once in a while, I guess. We're like 99.9% though. That's our batting average. Yeah, I remember when I was in late high school and just first getting into socialism, and I thought Cornel West was a real socialist, but I quickly learned better. Yeah, exactly. I had an attachment to him because my parents like him. My parents like him because he's a Christian socialist, and they're Christians, so I had a personal bias to him that clouded my vision of how nefarious he actually is, really. I mean, that might sound harsh given Cornel West's history of being based, but watch this.
West.
All right, and you guys got to let me know if you can hear it too, because this is the first time trying a reaction video.
And the entire professional managerial class left comes out in support of the violent Mossad regime change protests in Iran.
Shame on those on the left who view precious Iranians solely as pawns and not understanding.
The projection and the arrogance to come out and say, shame on those on the left. Audio's good? Perfect. Thank you. Shame on those on the left who don't support Israeli Mossad-backed color revolution in Iran. Shame on you. The moralizing, the virtue signaling. You're not a good person unless you support Israeli-backed regime change because it's being framed as a revolution. It's being framed as a bottom-up uprising, so you should ignore all of the Mossad involvement. You should ignore the fact that they're arming ISIS cells in Iran in order to escalate this into a violent regime change that serves Israeli interests. Like, the level of condescension there, and projection. Pure projection. He's saying that we see the Iranian people as pawns. Dumbass. You're the one using them as pawns. You're the one trying to use Iranians as pawns in Israel and the U.S.'s geopolitical agenda. You're not, I mean, sure, you could make the argument that we want to use them as pawns to fight for sovereignty and for socialism, our political goals, and for stable, prosperous societies that aren't colonized by Western capitalist imperialism. I guess we kind of want to use them for I guess we want to use them as pawns to achieve those ends. You could say that, but that's good for the Iranian people. Sovereignty and economic well-being is good for the Iranian people. It's good that the Iranian Revolution kicked out the U.S. empire for the regular working-class people of Iran. You want to use them as pawns to make them an Israeli-U.S. puppet government, to turn Iran into that. You are the one trying to use them as pawns, quite literally. And Israel has openly said this on Israeli Channel 14, that they're funneling arms into extremist elements in Iran so that they can use them as pawns to establish an Israeli puppet government. So don't fucking lecture me, Mr. Cornel West, like I'm in college and I'm paying you too much money to teach me some stupid class that I'm never going to use in my life. You don't get to lecture us anymore. You are on the wrong side here, and it's quite obvious to anybody who's not trying to get laid by some Iranian diaspora monarchist.
In fact, that you can never justify massive repression in the name of some anti-imperialist project. We've got to be anti-imperialist, morally consistent against any form of oppression.
I absolutely do not support the way the Iranian government has responded to that. I think that the Iranian government and every government should respect the right of people to express their political opinions and for people to be able to do so safely.
Many of our Iranian brothers and sisters need our help right now, and one of the biggest ways that we can do that is by continuing to attract eyeballs and continuing to not let this issue slip out of the public light.
Notice how
These freaking people, dude. These people. Like, this was disgusting for 3 different reasons. It's the same bullshit. It's 3 so-called socialists supporting the overthrow of a sovereign revolutionary government in Iran. But it's ridiculous for 3 different reasons. So, and all of those reasons are telling about these PMC leftists. Okay, so you have Cornel West lecturing at us and saying we want to use the Iranians as pawns when that's what he's trying to do. You have Zoran standing in front of the Western mainstream media, these liars, these scum, the people who told us that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and got us to destroy their nation, and the prosperous nation of Libya and Syria and all these different countries that the media has lied us into wars with. He's standing in front of them and trying to appease them, appeasing them by throwing the people of Iran and Iranian sovereignty under the bus, saying, oh, please like me, please let me have my successful career within the Democratic Party. I'll trash all of these people who are fighting for their lives and having revolutions against U.S. occupation and establishing sovereignty and independence for the first time in hundreds of years. I'll throw them under the bus so I can have my nice, cushy career within the Democratic Party. And he did the same with Venezuela. It's like, dude, suck a dick. Suck a dick. The people in Venezuela did what people like you and Bernie could never dream of doing. The best thing you can do is run for some small little office within the Democratic Party by selling out to the Democratic Party. The people of Venezuela had a damn revolution from the bottom up. They seized power of their government and their own resources. They did what you're too scared to do, or what you're actually preventing our country from doing by telling them that we can have a revolution through electing a bunch of sellouts. So you have Zoran throwing, countries who are way more left-wing than him under the bus, working class people who are more left-wing than him under the bus, to elevate his own careerist position within the Democratic Party. And then you have AOC saying not only are these Mossad-backed protests good, but we need to help them by spreading awareness and keeping it in the public eye. Dude, she is a CIA asset psyop if I've ever seen one, or at least it's very suspicious. The fact that she, a young socialist who has popularity with the youth, or at least somewhat, I don't know who actually likes her anymore, but that's her job within the Democratic Party, is to control the progressive youth and filter them back into support for imperialism. She's calling on them to post TikToks and Instagram stories and Snapchats and whatever else, calling for Mossad-backed regime change in Iran. And this is what we're supposed to believe is the left-wing leadership in our country? These people are the left-wing imperialists. They're the progressive wing of empire. They're social fascists, just like they've always been throughout history. This is the role that they play. All they do is shepherd anti-establishment energy right back into the establishment's prison.
The professional managerial class left always repeats uncritically empire propaganda about regime change operations in countries that are enemies of the United States and the Zionist regime. These are the same people who supported the head choppers in Syria, the Nazis in Ukraine, and now they want us to support the Mossad traitors who burned down mosques and executing Iranian officials. Can you imagine what the United States government would do to us if we did a fraction of what the Iranian protesters have done?
And you have conservatives supporting this while at the same time uncritically supporting ICE. It's like, dude, what would you say, Mr. Conservative, if a foreign power was funding protesters in America who were beheading the police and burning down Christian churches? How would you react to that? You would be calling for a full-on surveillance state and a full-on government crackdown against anybody who was engaged in this kind of behavior. But when it's Iran, it's a revolution, a good thing for freedom, even though it's all funded by the Mossad, who's funneling arms into the most extremist elements. The pro-imperialist left and the anti-establishment right are the same thing. Eddie Lager, yes, quote me on that. Honestly, one of my favorite quotes. So thank you. I appreciate that. It's true. Lennon Dubois said the audio interviews with the party are coming soon. Yes. Lennon Dubois has done a series of interviews that are going to be releasing soon, so I'm excited to hear those. Thank you for the $2 super chat. And then Popers also sent, where'd he go? There he is. Glad you're streaming more often again. Any word on a return of Noah's show? Noah's really busy right now. He just got a new job, so that's why his show came to an end. I would like to see it come back. I don't think he has the time right now because of family issues. But eventually, I'd love to see it come back. I love Noah's talk show. I also bought Noah and Carlos Streamlabs Ultra, so they have no excuse not to stream and make it high quality. So, thank you, Popers, for the $5 super chat. I appreciate you, brother. The way AOC says Iran makes me cringe so hard. Iran. Where is she?
And brothers and sisters need our help right now, and one of the biggest ways that we can do that is by continuing to attract eyeballs and continuing to not let this issue slip out of the public light.
Notice how the
God, it's so disgusting. Yeah, why would we focus on Palestine or Venezuela or Ukraine or anything else when we can support Israeli-backed regime change in Iran? Dude, these people are scum. They think they're such good... AOC thinks she's such a good person and such a good progressive, and everyone who criticizes her is a misogynist and a racist. Just because she gives mild criticism of Israel, even though she wouldn't even say the word genocide. Like, dude, you are not a good person for saying, yeah, maybe genocide is bad. That does not make you a good person if you turn around and vote for the Iron Dome and call for Israeli-backed regime change. Thank you for reposting the stream comment. Would love a Noah show again, says Iowa Worker. Yes, that'd be cool. You know, I wish I could... the one thing that I miss about StreamYard is being able to pull your guys' comments up on screen. I wonder if there's a way to do that with Streamlabs. I'll just look that up and I'll figure it out for next time. I don't want to figure it out right now, but Olorshek Molish. Remember Lady AOC's River of Tears in a bunker miles away from 1 to 9 Kinderberstag. I don't remember that. Are you talking about when she was at the border crying? Is that what you're referring to? Because that was wild and funny. Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example, though. It's all performative. You know, and child separations at the border were still going on under Biden. I know, because I tracked it, because we had a petition go viral when Biden got elected. I'm like, all right, if you guys are electing this guy to stop child separations at the border, let's actually make sure he does it. And hundreds of thousands of people signed the petition, and then he never stopped it. They continued. So there you go. It's the liberal Zionists who think they are profound for being anti-Netanyahu. Yep. Yeah, people say that a lot, you know. Well, a lot of people in Israel don't even like Netanyahu. It's like, well, yeah, about 30% of them don't think he's going hard enough. So, you know, that doesn't make them good people. What, Eddie? You don't support Palantir Israel pedo Dems? Well, you aren't a real socialist then, unless you support the Dems. Good point. You have to condemn existing socialism in Venezuela and support existing Sharia law socialism in New York City under the iron fist of Ayatollah Mamdani. Dreamtime Aquarium can see the comments on... Wait. You can... Yeah, I see that. I would just like to pull up specific ones. Yeah, it is nice that we have the chat here for sure. I would just like to pull up like specific super chats, but whatever. Maybe I can. What does this button do? I don't know. Also, they're just fundamentally using him as a scapegoat. It's not like they're actually against the Zionist project fundamentally. Yes, absolutely. When in reality, Netanyahu and his far-right coalition in the Israeli government are just the inevitable outcome of the Zionist project, you know, of maintaining a Jewish majority ethno-state on top of Arab land. You know, of course, eventually the mask is going to fall and you'll no longer have liberal Zionists running the whole show. You'll have these psychotic ones like Itamar Ben-Gvir. Gary V. Black says, double check that you liked the video. Yes, thank you, Gary V. Double check. Make sure you did. Like, share, all that. Have you ever noticed that every January when Trump is president, World War III trends? I haven't noticed, but that's interesting. It's kind of true, isn't it? I don't know if we're going to World War III right now, though. Here's the funniest story I saw today. This is so hilarious, but it's also important, you know. It's also a very telling story. So, Canada, in response to U.S. tariffs, which have weakened their economic relationship, which is obviously very strong, you know, Canada and the U.S. are basically the same country, especially economically. But Canada has been getting more angry with the U.S. Even the Canadian bourgeoisie has been missing out on profits because of Trump's sort of random and seemingly counterproductive sanctions that he's been putting on everybody. So now Canada, the U.S.'s junior partner, is going to be allowing Chinese EVs into their domestic markets. So for those of you who don't know, Chinese EVs, in terms of quality and in terms of affordability, absolutely blow American EVs out of the water, right? Tesla and Elon Musk and all of these people would be absolutely screwed if the U.S. government didn't keep tariffs on Chinese EVs that make it unprofitable for them to import them here and sell them here. So, you know, that's what's so funny about Elon Musk always talking about support for capitalism. He gets all of his money in government subsidies from the government like a welfare queen. And he's reliant on the U.S. keeping sanctions and tariffs on Chinese EVs to prevent his competitors from entering the market. Just absolutely hilarious. So obviously Canada has been similar, dominated by Western EV companies. But now, for the first time, they are going to be lifting the tariffs on Chinese EVs. And Canadians in the Great White North are going to be whipping around in tricked out Chinese EVs with like 18 computer screens. You press a button and it transforms into a jet and flies you into space. Like, they are going to be flexing on us here in the United States as we drive around in our outdated Teslas and listen to Elon Musk yap about how they're the best. Meanwhile, the Canadians are flying around in space in their new Chinese EVs. So this is hilarious because it's going to become very apparent to Americans, or more apparent to Americans, that China is way ahead of us in tech, right? This is going to bring it right to our border. We're going to be so jealous of these Canadians driving around in their affordable Chinese EVs that it's going to piss a lot of Americans off. It's going to piss a lot of car people off. They're going to wish that they could move to Canada and get access to this. So it's very interesting, and I think it could potentially create consumer demand, political demand for the U.S. to lift these tariffs so that we can import Chinese EVs. And the U.S. is throwing a fit about this. Canada will regret this. No, they won't. Canada will prosper the more economic partnerships they create with China instead of the U.S., which just debt traps them and tries to boss them around. Whereas China is now producing things, manufacturing things that are so much more high quality than the U.S. that even the U.S.'s allies are saying, okay, screw you, buddy. I'm going to go trade with them. I'm going to go trade with these red guys, these communists over here who are cranking out high-tech EVs. So this is hilarious. I bet you Elon Musk is furious about this. And it also shows the state of U.S. imperial decline, and that Trump's tariffs are actually accelerating that decline and pushing even countries who are traditional allies of the U.S. government towards quote-unquote U.S. enemy states. So, hilarious story. Gary V has been a member for 25 months. Holy cow. Thank you, Gary V. You might be the longest time member that we have on this channel. Actually, I don't know if anybody can beat 25 months. That's impressive. And thank you, Chef Movkata, for subscribing. Movkata. First year, my guy, but if Canada moves full left, it could happen quickly. Yeah, absolutely. Canada ACP chapter's lucky AF. Dude, I'm moving. I'm straight up moving to Ontario, and I'm becoming the chapter executive. Everybody in ACP Canada gets a Chinese car, BYD or whatever. Don't worry, USA. You still have your heavy-duty bikes. Yeah, I guess. I can still go to the Harley-Davidson store. They give you free beer here in my town. Eddie kind of looks like Scott Bakula. I don't know Scott Bakula. Oh, well, I'll take that as a compliment. Looks like a good-looking guy. Seen some BYDs back home in Colombia. Freaking nice cars. They really are. All the US YouTubers testing cars are very excited about the Chinese cars costing less than a third compared to Western products. Yes, they cost like a third of Western products, which are inferior. And most of it stems from the supply chain, right? China's supply chain is all integrated, and a lot of it's publicly owned. Whereas Elon Musk, for example, has to buy lithium from a lithium company who puts margins on it because they want to make profit. So ultimately, those increased prices go into the price of the final product, and they end up being more expensive, whereas China uses socialism and economic central planning to make sure that their supply chain is integrated and running as efficiently as possible. So that's how they're so much advanced, further advanced than us. And yeah, a lot of YouTubers, like car YouTubers, are now covering these Chinese EVs, and they're very jealous. I gotta go to the bathroom real quick, guys. I'm sorry. My bladder has gotten weak. I'll pull up something for you to watch, though. Here you go. I don't think I've played this one on stream before. Alright, enjoy me wrestling this guy from an all-boys school. I'll be right back after I go to the bathroom. Alright, we're back. How am I doing? This guy was good. His teammate was really good. He was like my rival. So this guy was actually the backup. But the guy he was behind was really good, and I beat his teammate in the finals in a close match. We ended up wrestling then like 3 or 4 times. But this guy almost beat him, and the other kid was a national finalist. He thought he was going to get me with a high flyer, though. Like, buddy, what do you think? You're one of my youth wrestlers? I'm so used to watching youth wrestling now. When I watch myself, I'm, like, impressed. I can't help it. I used to think, like, I suck. I could have done better. Now I'm so used to watching, like, 5th graders. I see myself, I'm like, man, I'm friggin' amazing. I'm so much better than all these kids I coach. It's because they're literal children. Smart Americans like Eddie are full communists. Hell yeah, baby. No audio, but he fucking up that guy. Yeah, baby. I want to learn how to wrestle because of you, actually. Hell yeah. You should do it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. You can do this to people. I mean, look, this guy's jacked. He's all tatted up. And I'm a midget, and I'm beating him, so... You know, that's what wrestling will do for you. Wrestling is gay. Yeah. That's the classic excuse that people give to not learn how to defend themselves. Oh, that's gay. I'll just get knocked out or choked out anytime someone starts a fight with me. It's like the Nick Fuentes view. Going to the gym is gay. What's better is being a theater kid who can't lift the bar, the 45-pound bar at the gym. It's better to look like Neon. Looks like I'm getting a little tired here. Alright, we don't have to watch all of this. I got in on his leg again. I guess I was taking a lot of shots. Oh, I countered the 2-on-1. I mean the slide by. Alright, that was a good match. That guy was really nice too. I remember talking to him after the match for a while. I was like, dude, I thought you were going to suck because you were a backup. You did not suck. And then he's like, yeah, I almost beat our starter who's ranked top 5 in the country. I'll play the match against the starter sometime too, now that I've dropped all the lore. Okay, I thought of another video I want to play. Let me know in the chat if you have any topics you want to talk about. Did I miss any super chats here? Richie Respect liked the stream. What up, Richie? How's it going, brother? Driving the truck today? Did Fuentes really say that? Yeah, bro. He told his fans not to go to the gym. He, like, calls them gym bros and makes fun of them. Like, dude, he's just a theater kid. He's like a theater kid, and that's why he can't drop his beef with Candace Owens and why he keeps spiraling right now and digging himself a bigger and bigger hole. Because he's petty and has no emotional control. He's completely immature. He's like a stunted child developmentally. So he just has to keep going after these people. Either that or he's an attack dog on behalf of the French government or, you know, another federal agency. But there's a lot of weird connections there between him and the French where he received, like, an insane amount of money in French Bitcoin. And then if you look at the positions he takes, they almost always align with the French government. Like his position on Russia-Ukraine flip-flopped right when the French government's position did. He goes after Candace Owens when she was doing all of the Brigitte Macron reporting. Like, there's a lot of weird overlaps there between him and the French. Jackson, I'm sure, will break it down soon. I was on Jackson's show recently to talk about Erica Kirk, and obviously Fuentes came up because he was one of the people saying there's nothing to see here with Erica Kirk. And, you know, the more people dig, the more weird stuff they find. I mean, some of you guys watched my last stream on her Ukrainian or Romanian orphanage. Weird stuff going on there, so he would rather you be a cat boy, more his speed. Exactly. Fuentes, the crypto scammer. Motherless clown. Yeah, I would say even more than motherless clown, I would say fatherless clown. That's the problem. No offense to his dad, wherever he is, but his dad failed him. He failed to make him a man. Nick Fuentes, destroy ACP. I mean, if you're a pedophile, I guess. If you think defending pedophilia is destroying someone, but from what I see, all of the ACP's posts making fun of Nick Fuentes are going viral, and a lot of people are turning on him now. Actually, thousands of people, even in his own Telegram chat. So it seems like the opposite is happening, but, you know, whatever you say, everybody has their own perspective. Maybe you have the pedo perspective. Here's what I wanted to show. This is one of the funniest things I've ever heard, to be honest with you. Like, it's
Clips,
a little
like
crass. And, like, just allow me to be a dumb jock for a moment, you know? But I really did feel like a lot of theater kids when I was growing up were, like, the meanest kids. Like, a lot of the... And I'm not saying this is everybody, and I'm not saying theater and music and acting are all stupid or whatever and feminine. But I really did feel like in my high school, some of the theater kids were like the meanest kids who would actually bully people about things they couldn't control, you know, and would start drama. And a lot of the jocks actually weren't really bullies. They were kind of nice. They were just guys who played sports and got good grades and, you know, kind of enjoyed their high school experience and hanging out with their friends and weren't that mean to people. They would tease people, but I don't know. I always thought this... mainstream media narrative that theater kids are the nice guys and the nerds are the nice guys while the jocks are the dickheads who bully them and shove them in lockers. I didn't find that to be true in my experience. I felt like the nerds were the ones who would grow up and work for the military-industrial complex, and like a lot of them were the real evil ones. But obviously I'm biased. I was Mr. Lift weights and wrestle. But I never shoved anyone in a locker, and I was really nice to pretty much everyone in the school. But anyways, allow me to be a jock for a second and a meathead while we watch this Candace Owens clip about Nick Fuentes, because, you know, I'm not saying you gotta agree with what she's saying here, but I do.
That people have been following him. This is a Glee Club kid, okay? He's dramatic. I like Nick Fuentes clips. Like I like watching Real Housewives clips. And this is, by the way, the problem, as I've said, that heterosexual men cannot continue to follow theater boys. This is actually an illness in our society, is that people who are playing the part of men and are actually at their core theater boys and want to go to Congress and want to have platforms and would never fight wars.
Is this not true of the whole Republican Party? Lindsey Graham, Mr. Ladybugs. Is Lindsey Graham just not a Southern theater kid who tries to act like a tough guy because he's in the Republican Party and is a warmonger? No, he's a theater kid, and his job is to be an actor. He's an actor who pretends to be on the side of the American people when he really serves the military-industrial complex. He's nothing but a paid actor for murder and the imperialist death machine and the profit extraction machine. You could say the same for a lot of these guys. None of them have calluses on their hands. Right? None of them have those bad boys. None of them even lift weights, let alone, you know, have done a really hard job like concrete, you know. And one of the things about doing hard physical labor like that, doing it, like, I matured more from working concrete over the summer than I have from anything else in my life, right? Because when you have to subject your will to that, you know, 8 hours a day doing hard labor in the sun, it builds character. And if you have to do it all the time, you know, it kind of erodes your body and makes you depressed, and that's why we need socialism, so people can have more time off and control in the workplace. But it does discipline you, and it builds character internally. And our politicians are a bunch of people who have never done a hard day's work like that. They've never been a part of the proletariat. They've never subjected their will to, you know, the will of another person who commands them to work all day. They've never had to just accept that that's what they're going to have to do. You know, go out and haul lumber or haul concrete for 8 hours a day, 5-6 days a week. And that's what the vast majority of Americans have to do. Is, you know, work 40 plus hours a week, especially the industrial proletariat when it comes to working with their hands. And that's what none of our politicians have done. They're all like very, very soft, pampered theater kids. And it's very, very weird because they pretend to be these masculine, manly, tough guys. And Nick Fuentes fits right in with that. He fits right in with that. He's a soft theater kid who actively tells his fans not to go to the gym, who actively calls proletarians nail bangers and celebrates more elite PMC-style jobs where you're not actually producing any value. And then he tries to act like he's Mr. Tough Guy and he's Mr. Bang Your Fist and Call for More War. Motherfucker, you ain't fighting the wars. The closest you'll ever get to a war is reenacting it on a stage as a part of a play.
They are, for whatever reason, being listened to by actual men. This was just unbelievable to me that the statement was made and you couldn't see that it was going to end here. Of course, this is what happens. This is what happens when you elect or you decide that you're going to follow people who don't like women. That people...
This is what happens. Oh, that part's funny. Just because she's talking about Nick Fuentes, that's funny. And I think you can be a good politician and, still be a gay person. But I get what she's saying. And you don't have to be a gay person and hate women, right? Nick Fuentes actually hates women. He, despises them. He doesn't think they have anything of value to add. Which is why he's got these one of the reasons why he's got these pedophilic tendencies to defend dating a 16-year-old, because he just sees women as objects. So why would you even want a woman who you can have a rational, intelligent conversation with? It's so gross. It makes me puke. I don't even want to talk about his statements on 16, 17-year-old girls. Actually, 14, 15, too. As a 27-year-old, he's defending people who hook up with 14, 15-year-olds. You're a freak. You're a freak. But anyways... Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I do think there's something to us being run by soft, pampered theater kids rather than proletarians and real men, for lack of a better word, and real women. Lorshek says, most people would break out in tears after working 2 hours on a construction site. They really would, dude. You really can't know what that's like until you do it. The level of mental toughness that you develop from having to work for someone else under someone else's command, especially if you're doing the grunt work, which I was, fetching the rebar, You carry that rebar that's been sitting in the hot sun all day, and it rips your hands apart, and it's heavy, and it's hard to balance. It actually, I wrestled really, really well that year, and the year afterwards, because I built so much muscle and mental toughness from doing concrete. Wrestling, which is known for being the hardest sport, seemed like nothing compared to doing concrete. It seemed easy. I was so much more grateful to get to wrestle after I did concrete. So it's really hard to understand how difficult and how taxing it actually is on your body to do blue-collar labor 10 hours a day or, 8 to 10 hours a day until you do it. And then to wake up the next day and do it again and again and again. And I had light at the end of the tunnel. I knew it was not a job I was going to do forever. But a lot of those guys are doing that every day for the rest of their lives, and they just have to accept that. Which is, and a lot of them turn to alcoholism and gambling and drugs, which is tragic because, under a socialist society, they would have more free time and more money and more control in the workplace, and they would actually be praised for doing such a hard and important job for society. And then Chancellor sent a $7 super chat. Thank you, comrade, for the super chat. Driving home from Calgary to Regina. Thank you for the edutainment, Eddie. You demand. Thank you, Chancellor. I appreciate you, brother. I'm glad I can provide some entertainment while you make that trip. Go ahead and get yourself a Chinese EV since you're in Canada and the tariffs are going to be lifted now. And then you can have a car/boat. Fuentes has never touched a woman, only a catboy. Shout out to the tradesman listening on my lunch, heading back to site. Hell yeah, brother. That's awesome. Have a good day at work. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm streaming in the middle of the day when all the tradesmen gotta work. I guess some of them can throw headphones in. That's why I liked stripping when I was doing concrete. I liked stripping the forms more than I liked pouring. Because you could just listen to music and zone out and go hard. And eventually me and my buddy got really good at stripping pretty fast. So we would just do all the stripping jobs together. And that was actually pretty fun. Eddie, finally link with Hassan. I watch you guys both. I can tell y'all have more in common than you realize. Both y'all would shut up Fuentes and all of them. Brother, tell Hassan that. Tell Hassan. I know that we have overlap between our audiences. I know that we have overlap in our perspective on American politics and what we're trying to achieve. I think Hassan could be an incredible force for good in America, but he's got to have me or Jackson or Haas on. He's just got to extend the invite, you know. I think he's scared that there will be backlash from his audience when it's like, just have us on, and you don't even have to be nice. You can ask us anything. We're not asking for a softball interview. We'll come on for an hour, and you can interrogate us and ask if we're fascists and go through our entire history, and we'll explain it to you. But at least let us have that conversation. Don't just call us a cryptocurrency and this other stupid stuff that has nothing to do with our shared vision for American politics, and refuse to have a conversation about it. You know, when clearly we're growing in relevance every single day. All of our social media platforms are blowing up. Hassan's, not that this is a bad thing, but it's sort of plateauing his audience. Why would he not want to have us on and open himself up to a new audience? I don't get it. Hassan needs to learn more theory and principally align himself with the global opposition and left. No playing around about Venezuela or Iran. Yeah, I agree with that. That's one of my main things I've said about Hassan is he streams so much, which is impressive. You know, it's like it does take work ethic to do that. Not to say... He said that streaming is harder than like a 9-to-5 job, which is not true, but it is draining. And you know, it's impressive how much he does stream. But that said, it's like just take a 2-hour break from streaming someday and read Lenin instead. Or just freaking read Lenin aloud on your stream. The books are all in the public domain. It's not like Lenin would be mad at you for reading his book on stream and making money off of it. Just read a little bit of theory. You have the time. You have the money. You don't need to stream 8 hours a day anymore. Stream 5 hours a day and take 1 hour to read Lenin. Come on. Checks list. Right. Other YouTubers. That does seem. Huh? Is that typo? I doubt he reads. Not consistently. I think he's read something, but you can tell when people read and when they don't. You know, if he was really, really into his Lenin, his show would look different than it does. It wouldn't be as liberal coded as it is. You can just tell. Hassan needs to go to Cuba, Venezuela, China, North Korea, Vietnam to get some wisdom. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, him going to China really was a positive development. Like, he was always on the fence about China, and after visiting, he's pretty much pro-China, right? His position has evolved on that, and part of the reason it's evolved is because he got to go see it with his own eyes and meet with people there and talk to them about their own country and talk to communists about their vision for China. But he pulled back on a trip to Cuba, and I don't know if he's ever had a trip to the DPRK or anything. That would be hilarious, Hassan in the DPRK. But he pulled back on a trip to Cuba because he didn't want to get arrested, or he was afraid to go through customs, which a lot of people gave him shit for that, and I understand, but, you know, I understand that fear as well. I haven't been outside the United States ever, and, you know, I worry about getting stopped by customs as well. Yeah, he needs to make that trip eventually. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. They'll let you back in. It's just Cuba. People go to Cuba all the time. Say you're on a vacation. When I saw ACP members actually going to Yemen and Venezuela, that's when I started to realize, oh shit, these guys are actually serious about global solidarity. Hell yeah, man. Thank you. I think that gained us a lot of cred. Hassan even said on his show the other day that gained us a lot of cred with him. And I mean, they were at Haas and Chris Halali and Jackson were at Nasrallah's funeral, where Israel flew fighter jets, bombers, over the funeral as an intimidation tactic. And then we learned later on that there were segments of the Israeli government who wanted to bomb it. They wanted to bomb it, and other sections were like, no, there are Americans there. We should not, because that'll piss off Americans and turn people against us even more. But the more extremist elements wanted to murder 3 members of the ACP, and yet we're the feds. We're the ones who are really working for Mossad. Mossad tried to kill our guys. Mossad tried to take us out. Mossad threatened us with a bomber. You know, we put our lives on, or like, not me, but my comrades put their lives on the line to stand in solidarity with Yemen and the Palestinian resistance. And you want to call them feds? Like, bruh. What are we talking about here? I hate how me and my coworkers have to drive old vehicles falling apart to work while China has far more advanced transportation than the U.S. Yeah. Oh, thank you for subscribing, Junlin Banshee. Appreciate it. I can see all the new subscribers now on the mini feed. I love that. Our Facebook is growing like crazy. We're getting so many Facebook likes. We're up to like 30K on there. I guess the boomers really like Carlos, I think. I think Facebook is Carlos's platform. Because the boomers actually like his academic look. They respect that professionalism. And they want to hear they actually have the patience to sit through a long philosophy video, unlike Gen X. So I think that's why Carlos is blowing up on Facebook so much, which is awesome. What the heck was I saying, though? Midwestern Mussolini. I'm the kind of person who hangs Mussolini upside down. I'm the person you're going to need to get behind when this country devolves into another war. Oh, yeah, the coworkers driving transport that's falling apart. Yeah, I mean, dude, how much of a hassle is it as an adult to take care of your car? Oh, my goodness. I just went and got my license plates replaced the other day, like... You got to do that. You got to get your registration updated every year. You have to pay a bunch of money for your license, and you have to keep your insurance updated. But even beyond all of that, just the mechanic repairs. It's like, who can afford all of this? You got to repair your car every freaking day, it seems like, or at least once a year if you are buying used, if you can't afford to buy a new nice car. And even then. And... then gas on top of that. And I think this is the reason why I loved New York so much, right? People were kind of surprised by how, like, in love I was with New York after visiting with Kyle Pettis. But I really, truly think a big part of it was the subway system. I figured out the New York subway after, like, a day of being there. I was like, this is easy. I don't even need my phone. I can just look at the map and know where I'm going. And you hop on, it's 25 cents, and you can go anywhere in the city. I went all the way to New Jersey at 3 a.m. Through subways, and it cost me 25 cents to get there. I went to the Newark airport from Brooklyn. And not only that, but New York is like being in a video game, because it's basically 4 different cities meshed into one, plus New Jersey. New York City, that is. So you can hop on the subway and be in Manhattan in a minute, go over this amazing bridge, see all these amazing skyscrapers. It feels like you're in a video game, but that public transportation is something that, as an American growing up in the Midwest, I've never experienced in my life, right? And this is something that, like, Europeans take for granted. Europeans are like, the New York subway system sucks. Or even Japanese people or South Koreans, right? Even some of these capitalist countries that have invested in their public infrastructure. They're like, New York subway is terrible. But for me, as a Midwesterner who's driven a broken down car or ridden my bike everywhere for the last 2 decades, I was like, this is insane. You can go anywhere in a few seconds for 25 freaking cents. And that's what all these European countries have. In East Europe, a lot of that infrastructure was built under socialism and is still around. But it's amazing how much it increases your quality of life to not have to drive. It really, really is. And to not have to take care of a car, it is a wonderful thing. Every single city in America should have a subway. And then we should have trains connecting every city in America to facilitate economic intercourse. LOL. No, but if you connected like rural areas like where I grew up to the coasts via train, then you could transport commodities back and forth, and it would bring a lot of economic prosperity to these rural regions, which is something that we've seen in China. So it's just common sense. But at this point, the American economy, like, it isn't even about commodity production anymore. Commodity production creates profit so much more slowly. Carlos Garrido liked the stream. Thanks, Carlos. We've become so hyper-financialized that the ruling class can make profits more quickly through rent and debt, parasitically by extracting it, than they can from actually producing and selling commodities. So a lot of times when the U.S. takes over a country, like what they're trying to do with Venezuela, you don't see more capital, you see less capital. You see these regions be deindustrialized so the U.S. can just charge rent on that land that has the oil in it. And those rents and debts are what make up the lion's share of the profits on Wall Street and with the U.S. banking system. So they're not doing anything to rebuild America's infrastructure or help keep America's economy together or make sure that we're actually producing real value the way that they do in China. They're doing the opposite. They're going in the opposite direction. They're trying to make us nothing but rents and debts, producing more and more paper printed money out of nothing without producing any actual value. And China is going the opposite direction. They're making sure their economy actually does manufacture value, and now value that's more high quality than what the U.S. is putting out, or use values that are more high quality than what the U.S. is putting out. And putting limits on the big banks and the financial system to make sure that they don't develop a parasitic economy that just stacks paper money while producing no real value for society, no food, no infrastructure, no housing. And if there is housing built, it's just to charge more rents on it. So yeah, that's where we're at with the United States, and that's why they won't build high-speed rail, even though it's even though it would help our economy, and it would even help the bourgeoisie in some ways. The bourgeoisie is so hyper-financialized, they don't even want to facilitate increased commodity production anymore, which is really a big change since when Karl Marx wrote Capital. Helgenist Victor, thank you for the super chat and the 100 Argentinian pesos. Appreciate you, brother. The body of a bear, the trunk of an elephant, the eyes of a rhino, the claws of a tiger, and the tail of a bull. Is that supposed to be the US or China? Yo, this Streamlabs shit looks great, says Carlos. I'm glad you like it, bro. Remember, I bought you Streamlabs Ultra as well, so we can set up Escaping the Cave, Carlos's new show on Streamlabs. It might be difficult because StreamYards is really good for interviews. You just send people the link and they hop right in the room. So I think maybe we still use StreamYard for interviews, but yeah, this Streamlabs stuff is nice. And the controls I have over the audio are awesome. That was from Pulgasari, a Korean mythological beast, a symbol of peasant revolution. Oh, I've heard about that. Yeah, my girlfriend taught in Korea for 3 years. So she's told me about that. There's a lot of like working class history in Korea. That's very, very interesting. And it's sad how it's been written out of South Korean history, but the South Korean communists are like keeping it alive. Yeah, like there's this story of a guy who was a peasant and he was so mistreated and depressed and beaten down by life, and I think his family was killed by the Japanese or something. And he ended up like sacrificing himself to fight the system or committing suicide or something wild like that, where he was just in pure despair because of the state of Korea and the state of the Korean working class. And that guy's like remembered by the Korean communists as a hero and as a sign of the times and as a sign of what was, what they're fighting against, and a way to remember Japanese occupation. So yeah, it's that kind of history, that working class history that's written out of the history books that we're deprived of. And as working class people, this is our history. This is why I can't stand the anti-American leftists who are like, no, America's all bad. America KKK. Like, no, there's a good side. There's Martin Luther King. There's the Civil Rights Revolution. There's Abe Lincoln. There's the slave revolts. There's Nat Turner. There's the CPUSA during its golden era under William Z. Foster. There's the Black Panther Party. This is the good side of America. This is our history. So why are you telling me, as a fellow working class person, that we have to throw all of our history out because the ruling class's history is evil? We know their history is evil, right? That's why we point it out all the time. Our history isn't evil. Our history is one of fighting against injustice, for sovereignty, for economic well-being for all Americans. That's the good side of American history. The positive side that's deprived from us, that we don't learn about. We don't learn about the Battle of Blair Mountain, or what is the movie Salt of the Earth based on? You know, we don't learn about these massive union movements and these strikes in American history, where, you know, workers organized and took on the company and took on the police at the same time to fight for shorter work days, or for overtime pay, or for the right to unionize. All right, this is our history that needs to be not only recaptured, but celebrated and retaught to all Americans. So to be a leftist and just say all of America's history is bad, I'm going to throw all of that shit in the garbage bin because the bourgeoisie is evil, you're just sacrificing history and our country's history to the bourgeoisie. You're saying, yes, you know, our history is your history. And yes, we will ignore the struggle and the sacrifice of the Black Panther Party and Fred Hampton and our working class heroes. No, we say F your bourgeois history. We expose the bourgeois history for the evil that it is. And we bring out the proletarian history. We recapture that and we disseminate it to as many Americans as possible. We don't say all American history is bad and let's not learn anything from William Z. Foster and Fred Hampton. Are you kidding me? Or W.E.B. Du Bois? They just despise American workers, like this guy says. Yeah. They just hate, they're just anti-Americans. They think American workers are like living so high on the hog because we're in the, you know, the labor aristocracy or whatever, when really nowadays that isn't the case. Like, yeah, we do have more wealth surrounding us, but Americans don't live that well. We're all drowning in debt. We're all probably going to die on the workplace floor if we don't have a revolution. Nobody my age is going to be able to buy a house or retire, except for the ones who inherit banks. So Americans aren't living that good anymore, and there's no reason to hate American workers and condemn them to suffering because of what the bourgeoisie did in the past. Or because they blew up 2 towers to convince American workers that we should go to Iraq. American working class history, hell yes. That's what we need. That's American Marxism. American Marxism isn't burn down America, including the workers. American Marxism is let's uplift America on the backs of the workers and crush the bourgeoisie. Because think about it, this bourgeoisie, like the American proletariat, any proletariat is inherently patriotic. Because you're stuck in one place working, right? You can move throughout the labor market and find other jobs, but in general you're stuck in one place, one community working. And that you develop an attachment to that community. You care about that community because it's in your own interest and your family's material interest to make that community as prosperous and stable and safe as possible. And that's proletarian patriotism, wanting to uplift and protect your community. The bourgeoisie, the ruling class, these people own multinational banks, multinational corporations, meaning their corporations spread across multiple different countries. And these people can travel about on their private jets throughout those countries and live wherever they want. A lot of them are like world travelers. And so the bourgeoisie, the international, globalist bourgeoisie, for lack of a better word, is inherently cosmopolitan, right? They don't have that patriotic attachment to one country because they're making money in a bunch of countries and visiting a bunch of countries. So they have no patriotic attachment to the land or to American communities or to the American proletariat or to the American anything. They just see America as another place where they can make profits. So in the same way that countries in Africa are occupied by the big banks and the ruling elite of America and West Europe, America's occupied by the same people. We're occupied as well. The same people who are trapping Africans in debt, who Burkina Faso and Mali and Niger just kicked out of their country, thank God, and solidarity with them for doing so. Those same banks and corporations are the ones exploiting us here at home, trapping us in debt here at home, making sure that 78% of us are living paycheck to paycheck. It's the same ruling class. The ruling class that does imperialism is the ruling class that exploits us here. And this is what Lenin shows in his book, Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism, showing how capitalism develops into this imperialist world system that exploits people domestically and abroad. So to just say that American workers are evil and they're part of the American bourgeoisie, no, we're being exploited by the same bourgeoisie, and we're living worse and worse and worse as time goes on. So the solution isn't to be a third worldist and say that America should burn while the third world takes over and inherits the earth. No, it's to team up with the third world working class, to team up with Traoré and Mali and Niger and say, yes, we're fighting the same system. This is why we support sovereignty in Iran. They're fighting the same class of bankers and shareholders that are exploiting us and holding our government hostage here in America. So this is proletarian internationalism, right? It's not saying I'm an American, so I want America to burn, including the American proletariat. It's saying I'm an American, so I want to team up with the workers of all the world to fight against this American owning class, this cosmopolitan internationalist owning class that's exploiting us all. That's why proletarian internationalism is possible, because we are fighting the same enemy. As capitalism grows into a global system, the global bourgeoisie controls more and more countries. And all of those countries are fighting against the same people, the shareholder class, people like Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates is buying up all the farmland in America, and he's buying up all the farmland in Africa. So do we have a different enemy, us and the African farmers and peasants? No, we're fighting the same dude, Bill Gates. He happens to live in America, but that doesn't mean the American proletariat should have any loyalty to him. And this is why you got to start to see things based on class. And a big problem with the American proletariat nowadays is they've stopped seeing themselves as a class. Right? They've accepted this fascistic outlook, this class collaborationist outlook, some of them, where, what's good for the elite is also good for me. This is the kind of idea that Nick Fuentes is pushing. If you allow Western banks to take over Venezuela and debt trap their people, that'll be good for you. When no, you're not going to benefit from that at all. It'll just be them debt trapping you and the people of Venezuela now instead of just you. And they're never going to alleviate those debts. They're going to ramp them up as much as they can to keep their profits rolling in at a steady rate and an increasing rate. This is what, the rents and the debts are a way to keep the rate of profit from falling. This is a very foundational idea in Marxist economics, that the rate of profit has a tendency to fall, so the capitalists have to invent new ways to keep it high. And they do that by trapping us in debt. And more, they've done that domestically here at home, dismantling American unions, dismantling the protections that Americans fought for throughout the first half of the last century. Those have been destroyed, and we're living worse and worse and worse. So it's in our interest to stand up and fight. And it's in our interest to stand up and fight and support the people who are fighting that same ruling class all around the world, in Africa and Latin America and wherever else. It's not that we think the Iranian and Venezuelan governments are absolutely perfect and they've never made mistakes. It's that they represent working classes of people in those countries who are fighting for sovereignty against U.S. imperialism and against the same owning class that exploits us. Sorry, that was a good rant by me, honestly. But I had something else to say. I just can't remember. I got on a tangent there. It just pisses me off that they steal our history from us. It pisses me off so much. Read Michael Parenti's Make Believe Media, The Politics of Entertainment. because he wrote 2 books on media manipulation and brainwashing. The first one is Inventing Reality, which talks a lot about the news media, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC. Right, but there's another one that I like just as much called Make Believe Media, The Politics of Entertainment. And this talks about how Marvel movies and other fiction and stuff that's pumped out of Hollywood is used to brainwash us politically, which I think is even more powerful than the news media, because nobody watches cable news anymore, especially as Americans are more and more starting to see themselves as a class. Working class Americans are. That's what I was going to say earlier, that more and more Americans now are starting to see themselves as a working class, and their enemy as the owning class. But there's a lot of fiction media that's pumped out to make you not think that. Like, just think about Iron Man 1, where the movie starts with Tony Stark, a member of the military-industrial complex, murdering a bunch of Muslim people and saying they're evil terrorists or whatever. The way that media brainwashes us is very powerful, and one of the things that Parenti talks about in this is the films and the books that haven't gotten published. Right? And the ones that have been blocked, sometimes directly blocked by the CIA, especially in the 40s and 50s during the whole Red Scare thing in Hollywood, where all those actors were being red-baited and put on trial. He talks about movies like Salt of the Earth, which is about a union uprising, an amazing movie. It's considered now an American classic. But they couldn't get funding, and the CIA tried to block it directly and make sure that no movie studio would publish this amazing script. So they had to fundraise on their own, and I believe they used actual miners and actual workers who were at the event that they're covering in the movie as actors. And even though they had a shoestring budget, it became one of the greatest movies in American history because it was such a powerful working class story. And because we're so deprived of those stories. This is why everybody likes Squid Game and Parasite, these movies out of South Korea, because they focused on class struggle, which everybody, except the ruling elite, who make up a tiny, tiny percentage of the population, everybody can identify with that. Everybody could identify with wanting to go into the Squid Game to try risk your life to make $1 million rather than going back out into the real world and just being nickeled and dimed every day. People can relate to that. But we are so deprived of those relatable pieces of art that when we get them, they blow the fuck up. They're so popular. And another one is Spartacus. Dude, we almost didn't get Spartacus. The CIA directly blocked the publishing of the book Spartacus. And then it was published independently by some tiny little book house and absolutely exploded and again became an American classic. Because anytime we get a piece of art that's actually about class struggle, we identify with it. We love it. We say, yes, those slaves are badass, rising up against their slave masters who make them fight in the gladiatorial arena for their own entertainment. It's a story that's now become a classic because it resonates with people. And since, the Spartacus remakes have been depoliticized and turned into, like, that Spartacus show that was on Starz, STARZ, which is like a poor man's HBO. That was like basically pornography. So they've taken Spartacus and manipulated it and ripped out its deeper core messages and meanings. But the original Spartacus, that wasn't deprived of any of that stuff, blew up again, even though they didn't have any money. So imagine how many amazing pieces of art we could make about class struggle if there was actually money behind it. But the movie studios and sometimes the CIA and the U.S. military and the Pentagon directly block those kind of pieces of art from being made. And instead we get Marvel movies where the good guys are members of the military-industrial complex, are weapons contractors in iron suits. So yeah, when people say it's conspiratorial, that entertainment media brainwashes us politically, they need a wake-up call. They need to learn that Call of Duty is created with the direct collaboration of the U.S. military and the Pentagon. Thank you, Saphir, Jules, and I can't see it. And Steven for following on Facebook. Yeah, we got some Facebook followers. And then, let me just do this quick. Sorry, I'm still getting used to Streamlabs. There we go. Stephen Guggen. And then Sumya Jit Mitra super chatted 100 rupees, it looks like. Thank you, comrade. Appreciate you very much. Looks like got a super chat coming in from India, which is rare, but thank you. Please do an episode about 1, the Indian communist movement, 2, what's been happening in Bangladesh since 2024. Okay, I can. I have a TikTok video on Bangladesh, but not so much on modern Bangladesh. It's more about the history. And I would love to do a video on the Indian communist movement. It's very, very large, which makes sense because, China has lifted as many people out of poverty as India has in poverty today. So, India is a very similar country, massive population. China previously had massive poverty, just like India. And they use socialism to bring themselves up. And India shares a border with China, and they're just watching that while they still have massive poverty and malnutrition and all this. So there are a lot of communists in India, despite them having a right-wing Hindutva government. And Kerala, the province of India, which regularly outperforms the rest of India in social metrics like life expectancy and, happiness ratings and things like that, they're actually governed by communists. It's like a little communist state within India that I said, is the most successful province in India, which is partially because of remissions money. People move away and send money back to Kerala, but then the government invests that money intelligently in the people, in education and healthcare and infrastructure. So there's a lot to talk about there, and it usually goes viral because people think of India as a reactionary right-wing country, which the government is, but similar to America, they miss the good history. They miss the positive side. They miss the fact that they're like, hundreds of thousands of people who are organized Indian communists, I think. Maybe even more than that. But thank you for the super chat. Yeah, we got a lot of Facebook followers today. Everybody's following on Facebook, bro. Why is our Facebook blowing up so much? We're finally getting in with the boomer audience. For years, my audience has been like 18 to 30. Even when I was younger, even when I was like 22, it was like 18 to 30. Now we're finally getting in with the boomers. I think that's, even though I used to be younger and look younger, and I think I had more children in my audience or teenagers in my audience, I think 18 is really the age where you start to care about politics and it starts to affect you. So I don't think I'll ever have a huge influence with kids younger than 18, except for the really intelligent ones. The kids who were like me in high school and wanted to know about politics and felt like they were deprived of any kind of political education outside of YouTube. There are always a few of those, but generally people start, I think, peaking up 18 to 30, and then a lot of people older than that are set in their ways already, but maybe we can reach them through Facebook. Where does China export capital? All over the world, but it's not even exporting capital in the sense that Lenin talks about it, because China's rule with financing capital is they'll only finance equity, right? So equity means value that creates more value. So China won't just charge parasitic rents, right? They're building infrastructure that creates real, tangible, material wealth. And then they make sure that whatever country they're building this infrastructure in gets a way higher share of the profits than what, say, British oil companies were doing to Iran before the revolution, where Iranians were getting like 5% of their own oil profits, and then in practice they found that it was even less than that. The British found legal loopholes and scammed the Iranians so that they were only getting like 1% of their oil. China is going in, building these countries and financing the building of the infrastructure needed to extract this oil, and then signing deals that allow those countries to take the lion's share of the value that's produced and then reinvest it in more infrastructure and more development if they so choose. So China's version of exporting capital is much more like the Soviets, where we're just going to help you build up your own infrastructure so you can then be a more prosperous country, and in turn you can trade with us and we'll be more prosperous. They call it win-win cooperation, or mutual development and non-intervention. So we're not going to get involved in your politics, but we'll sign any trade deals you want that are good for you and good for us. We're not going to sign any imbalanced trade deals, or hyper imbalanced trade deals, because that's not what we do, and we want good relations. We don't want you to look at China the same way you look at the United States, where they sell you these ideas like they're going to be win-win, and then they end up just exploiting you and stealing all of your resources. China is actually creating contracts that are win-win, and that's why even Canada now is creating an economic partnership with China, because why wouldn't they? Even Canada, which shares a massive border with the U.S., which is a junior partner with the U.S., whose economy is so deeply integrated with the U.S., it's basically, all just one country, which is why we have ACP Canada chapters, because it really should be one country and fully integrated. It's a lot of mining companies and different kinds of companies up there, but really they're part of the U.S. economy. And even they are signing a deal with China, who's on the other side of the frickin' world, to import EVs because China is offering them a better deal than the U.S. So even the countries that are completely colonized and controlled by the U.S., that are in the U.S.'s sphere of influence, literally share a giant border with it, are now going all the way around the world to trade with China instead, because it's better and less predatory. So if that doesn't tell you where the American empire is heading, I don't know what will. Because European countries and even North American countries now are turning to China. And China's the only country that's actually producing anything. As we explained earlier, all the Western countries are becoming hyper-financialized. Where are you going to get manufactured goods from if not China? We outsourced all our jobs here. We got to import from China, and that's why everything in your house says made in China. I remember being so confused about that as a kid. Why is everything made in China? I don't get it. Nobody could explain it to me. It's because they have socialism, so they're actually building up their manufacturing base, and it's because global capitalism has been in this process of financializing, where more and more profits are made through rent and debt rather than the actual production of tangible commodities with a real use value. Thank you for the follow, M Skills and Amar Veer. And thank you so much for the super chat, Chief Madhu 1989. Thank you, comrade. $5. I appreciate that. Very helpful. As you guys know, Larry Ellison just transformed TikTok's staff, and they already took down one of my videos and gave me a strike on my account. TikTok is how I get a good portion of my income. It's how I survive. So if my TikTok account gets banned, I'll be in a rough place financially. So I really, really, especially at a time like this, appreciate your guys' financial contributions. And of course, YouTube takes about 30% of your money, but if you'd like to help support our project, patreon.com/MidwesternMarks is the best way to do so. They only take 5% of your money. And there's a bunch of exclusive content on there, too. There's also exclusive content on here. If you become a YouTube member, you get Carlos's books, both of them, which is a great deal for $10. But those are on Patreon as well. And there's also a bunch of exclusive short videos by me on Patreon that you will have access to if you become a member. So thanks. But anyways, Chief Madhu says, the American worker needs to be educated and uplifted. Condemnation of workers only leads to more resentment and further division. Absolutely. And that's what the Democrats did in 2016, especially with Hillary Clinton, that bourgeois witch. They really sowed division among the working class because they looked down on them and treated them like they're stupid, right? Some people are stupid, right? Some people are just dumb, like boomers who watch Fox News all day and they're 90 years old and they don't have much time left, right? That's just dumb, and there's nothing you can do about that, and whatever. But even still, what I was going to say is there's a difference between being dumb and being brainwashed, or even being dumb and being ignorant, not having access to the information that you need to not be dumb. And everybody in our society is deprived of that information because all of the platforms of communication are owned by the ruling class. And I say that boomers are just dumb, but like they were more deprived of information than any of us, right? If they wanted to get real socialist info, they had to, I don't know, read books and then watch public access television to see Michael Parenti like doing what was basically a live stream back then. Because none of the major networks would platform any anti-imperialist or left-wing news. So I think that's part of the reason boomers are so reactionary. That, and they were more stable economically. They had more of a social welfare system, and college didn't cost what it costs today. And the cost of living wasn't as insane. But anyways, there's... so you got to keep that in mind when you're talking to people, that they are systematically deprived of the information that you have, right? You have a whole ocean of information that they would probably like to get access to, but they've been deprived of. So you have to try to keep that in mind when you're educating them and when they say something that's incredibly stupid and wrong, and just try to explain to them calmly why you think it's stupid and wrong. And you don't even have to use those words. So yeah, and I mean, there's a difference also between being nefarious and evil and ignorant, right? A lot of working class people are just ignorant, and that leads them to bad political conclusions, right? But if you give them more information, they might come to some new conclusions. People like Ben Shapiro, right, who work for the Daily Wire, they're just evil. They're not ignorant. They know what's going on in the world, and they choose to support the side of evil because that's the side that they were born into. They were born into wealth and privilege and the ruling elite, so they want to protect that ruling elite and crush the workers whose interests are diametrically opposed to theirs. But a lot of working class people aren't Ben Shapiro. A lot of Ben Shapiro's audience, people in Ben Shapiro's community, aren't Ben Shapiro. Maybe now, right, because all the based people have kind of left Ben Shapiro's community. But back then, like 4 years ago, not all of Ben Shapiro's community was evil ultra-Zionists cheering on genocide. A lot of them just liked him because he would talk about free speech and make fun of woke college students. So try to keep that in mind when you're talking to people. I get that, it can be frustrating, but yeah, don't talk down to people. People have common sense. Working class people have basic common sense. You just need to reach them on that level, really. And then, but also at the same time, sometimes being harsh can work. Sometimes people just need to be called out in here. You know what? You're a dumbass. You know what? You're ignorant. You know what? You're still supporting Trump after he promised you the Epstein files and then covered them up. You're still supporting a pedophile defender and possibly a pedo himself. Like, sometimes people need to hear that, right? For years, we were like very lenient with the Trump people and gave them a lot of leeway. But now it's like, look what Trump's doing. Open your damn eyes and look what he's doing. And that kind of rhetoric is going very viral right now because regular people relate to that. Regular people are like, yeah, honestly, what the hell? I like Trump too, but look what he's doing. I liked him on the campaign trail when he was railing against the wars and talking about bringing manufacturing jobs back. He hasn't done any of it. So what did you actually support him for in the first place? Right? Sometimes you can be a little harsh. I'm not saying you have to baby and coddle people and treat them like they're children. Right? I'm just saying don't look at them like they're a basket of deplorables. Or don't look at them like they're on the same level of evil as Ben Shapiro because they watched him debate a college student once. That doesn't mean they're getting paid to lie to the American people on behalf of genocidal Zionists. Just means they've been tricked by those genocidal Zionists, and it's your job to give them the education they need to get out of that trap. Thank you, Hogan, for commenting and wasting your time instead of doing something useful like reading theory. ACP Rise. LOL. Yeah, I haven't even been paying attention to the chat. I've just been going off. Is there some dumbass in the chat? For liberal-minded people, I found that, you have to very gradually agitate them. But for conservatives, you just have to point out the obvious, as I've experienced. Yeah, and a lot of that's part of the class background. A lot of conservatives right now in America are proletarian, and a lot of liberals are students or upper middle class or professional managerial class. Which means they have less common sense and they're more likely to virtue signal and brown nose and consider their career first with what they say, right? A proletarian person can say whatever the hell they want for the most part, as long as HR doesn't hear you. They can say whatever they want at the workplace, and nobody's going to care because the boss still needs somebody to come and lay track on the railroad the next day. But PMC people who work with their brains, white-collar people, have to design their brains to say things that won't get them in trouble. They have to control their brains and only say things that the bosses like, all day, every day. So that creates this very liberal PMC consciousness, this Zoran Mamdani consciousness, where you're going to condemn Venezuela and Iran because you know that your higher-ups won't like it if you support Venezuela and Iran. So you basically discipline yourself to be a sellout as PMC, whereas the proletariat, they don't have to beat the common sense out of their own brains in order to climb the career ladder, like the PMC does. I've heard that from a million people, that it's easier to win conservatives over to communist positions than it is liberals. And that's not true for everybody, right? Me and Jackson Hinkle were more liberal at one point. There are a lot of people like that. Who are maybe from proletarian families but are a little more intellectual, or more likely to go to college because of sports or whatever, career opportunities. Like, there are liberals like that who are very easy to win over. I was not difficult to win over to Marxism. I was all about it because I thought the liberals were pansies, even though I was more of a liberal sock them. So there are liberals who are more easy to win over, and conservatives usually have more of a fear of the word, right? Liberals are more likely to call themselves communists because it makes them feel radical, while not actually being a communist in practice and actually just being a liberal in practice, where conservatives are more likely to actually be pro-communist in practice, but they won't call themselves communists or embrace the word because it's scary and Red Scare propaganda and all that. So, and that's the one way you could actually get booted out of a working, like a proletarian workplace, blue collar workplace for your politics, is if you become a communist and start trying to unionize. They're definitely, they have an aversion to the word, but in terms of actual substantive politics, I think conservatives are almost always way closer or easier to win over. Thanks for admitting it? Oh, I see. You're talking to the other guy. Better than a red bourgeoisie. Where's the USSR? Well, it's still around in terms of the infrastructure and the schools and the roads that it built. A lot of the East European countries have better infrastructure than us because it was built under the Soviet era. After capitalist restoration, after the sabotage and infiltration and destruction and betrayal by people within these countries of the socialist projects, these countries were destroyed. They were pillaged. Millions of people died out of poverty because they previously had free daycare and education and housing and 100% unemployment and healthcare, and all of those things evaporated overnight. People's pensions evaporated overnight because of hyperinflation. Elderly workers who were right about to retire saw their savings dry up like that because the socialist project fell and capitalist restoration took place. So, yeah, the USSR is gone, but it's what that teaches us is that we need socialism, and that capitalist restoration makes everything worse. Even if the version of socialism they had in those countries wasn't ideal, it wasn't as advanced as China's current version of socialism is, it was still way, way, way better than even the best versions of capitalism. Capitalism brought drug trafficking and sex trafficking back over the border. I just did a show with Jackson Hinkle, which will be releasing next week, where we talked about all of the sex trafficking rings in East Europe, in former Yugoslavia, in Romania, in the former Eastern Bloc states. As soon as socialism fell, all that, those minor sex trafficking rings flowed right back over the border. And that we got to see firsthand a comparison of socialism versus capitalism. Capitalism is degeneracy and poverty and the looting of a country's economy by a handful of elites, whereas socialism provides stability and universal employment and universal health care and free daycare for all. And those countries weren't the end goal. We don't want to go back to like an East European society. We want to go towards an advanced modern socialist society like China. But there's still a lot to learn from those countries, and what we can learn is that socialism is obviously superior. And this is detailed in great detail in Michael Parenti's book, Black Shirts and Reds, which talks about the destruction of the former communist world. And then, of course, in modern day, we have China, right? The fastest growing economy on earth, the country that's really leading the way along with Russia into this era of multipolarity and destroying U.S. unipolar hegemony. And China's doing that with socialism and communism. Why would you not want to learn from the only country on earth that has abolished absolute poverty? A country that has more people than any country on earth, and they've still managed to lift every one of them out of absolute poverty. If you don't want to learn from that, your head's way too far up your ass. I'm sorry. Like, you're so scared of the word communism that you refuse to do what's in your own country's best interest. Put your patriotism first and become a Chinese communist in America. Soviet Union today had over 500 million people. If it had not gotten talked into perestroika BS by Western wokists, yeah. All I gotta say is fuck Gorbachev and fuck Yeltsin and fuck all the traitors who sold out Lenin and Stalin and the heroes of our movement. And fuck Khrushchev too. The seeds of the USSR's destruction were sown under Khrushchev. And that was the era where Allende in Chile, they were pushing him towards democratic socialism rather than real, Marxist-Leninist communism. And then Allende won the election and ended up getting murdered by US-backed fascists, even though Fidel warned him that that was going to happen. They were just becoming more liberalized under Khrushchev. Also, almost everything he said about Stalin was proven to be a lie. Stalin was a hero. What the F? Stalin was a murderer. You need to watch our videos on Stalin. Or read Domenico Lacerdo's Stalin, The Critique of a Black Legend. That's a good book. Stalin's portrayed as an evil murderer because he did more than pretty much anyone else in history to fight against the bourgeoisie, to fight against the ruling class. He defeated the Nazis. He built socialism in one country, transformed the USSR Russia from a backwards, impoverished agrarian country into a global superpower. Built the first ever workers' state, a state that was run by the working class and not the owning class, the first in history. He abolished illiteracy. He greatly increased life expectancy and standard of living for his people, universal education, universal employment, universal housing. And these reasons are why Stalin is more popular today in Russia than even Lenin, right? The reason Stalin is so popular because even people who aren't communists in Russia realize that it was under Stalin that the Nazis were defeated, for one, and for two, Russia went from being the weakest of any of the imperialist countries at the time to being one of the strongest countries in the world under Stalin. They built up their industry and transformed their country from like a backwards agrarian swamp into an industrial powerhouse. So, even though in America we're told that Stalin was an evil dictator who's hated by all Russians because he murdered them, 75% of Russians say that Stalin was the greatest leader in their country's history. 75% of them, because it's objectively true. Look at what happened under Stalin. Like, yeah, sure, he killed people, but they were fighting a war. They were fighting World War II against Hitler. Yeah, he was gonna kill some Nazis or anybody, you know, in Russia who was collaborating with the Nazis. That was out of necessity. What should he have done? Just let the Nazis infiltrate Russia and take over so we'd all be speaking German right now? Yeah, almost every historical decision that Stalin made, even if it was a mistake, his intention was to uplift the proletariat, build socialism, and fight against the imperialist bourgeoisie. And that's the reason why so much shit has been piled on his grave by the Western media. The more you do to combat imperialism and the owning class, the more you will be portrayed as an evil demon and dictator and authoritarian in the Western media. The more they shit on someone, the more based you can bet that person is. Sometimes. Most of the time. Capitalist restoration also brought the rise of neo-Nazi groups and the Russian mafia. Yeah, or it allowed the Russian mafia to explode. You know, the Russian mob there was like a mafia under the USSR, but it was heavily suppressed, whereas it exploded and gained a ton of power afterwards, as did all the organized crime groups in the region. So yeah, when these Republican politicians tell you that they're tough on crime, remember that the USSR and Stalin were tougher. Okay, guys, I gotta go to wrestling practice in 15 minutes. I've already streamed too long. This was so fun. Thank you for hanging out. I love this new Streamlabs setup. This is sick. All of our streams from now on, besides interviews, will be here on Streamlabs. Check us out on patreon.com/MidwesternMarks. Follow on every platform. Peace out. I'll see you on the next one. I would play the outro, but